Welcome to the Unlocking Senior Resources podcast by Leave the Key. I'm Larry Wagner, and I've spent 30 years working with seniors where I was a certified senior advisor and the last 15 years in the home buying industry as a certified senior transition specialist, where I specialize in dealing with seniors going through a transition in their lives. This podcast is for seniors, those with seniors they love, and people who work in the senior community. In each episode, we bring on a guest who works to improve the lives of seniors. This podcast is your key to unlocking senior resources. And today I'm with Vinny, and I just forgot how to pronounce your last name.
Giacalone.
Giacalone. We just talked about that from the Organized Guy. And Vinny, a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
Today, we met through a senior networking group.
Correct.
Because we both deal in the universe of seniors for the most part, not exclusively, but it's a huge part of what we do. So as I said, we bring people on who deal with seniors to give them an education on what it is that they do and how they assist seniors.
Mm-hmm.
So just briefly, explain what the Organized Guy does, and then we'll talk about how you got there.
No, thanks. I'm a professional organizer.
Right.
I'm actually going on almost 10 years in doing the business. And really at the root of what I do with my clients is it's everyday issues that everybody has with their organizational issues. I mean, and everyday meaning that, these are folks that, look, you're going out, you're living your life, you're working, you got your kids, you're going on vacations. And what happens is things clutter up, pile up in your home.
People accumulate things? Is that what you're telling me?
Absolutely. They listen, they don't call us consumers for no reason at all. We consume. We just don't get taught to get rid of things.
That's right.
And it's really helping to work with them to come up with, from my perspective, strategic solutions on resolving it. It could be a closet. It could be the bedroom. It could be the garage. It doesn't matter what room in the house. Mm-hmm. It really is just working with them to reduce their stress, reduce their anxiety, and help them understand that there is a solution to whatever the problem is that they see. And really, more importantly, I want to be able to teach them how to maintain it after I leave. It needs to be fluid.
That's interesting.
But they need to, it's really important. I never want to just come into a situation and dictate how things should be done. I want to understand how they live in their space. And come up with a solution that works for them.
Right.
So when I'm not there, they can maintain it.
So if you stop teaching them how to maintain, you'll have more business, though.
Well, that's possibly true. But it really is that part of it really is critical for me. I want to be able to transfer my knowledge to them.
Right.
And it's funny is that I just saw a client yesterday. And that was one of the conversations that we were having because I've done multiple rooms in her house.
Right.
And we went back to one of the rooms, the first rooms that I did with her, and it was a little bit of a mess. And so I wanted to find out from her. I said, I want to understand what worked, what didn't work.
Right.
And after we had a lengthy conversation, she acknowledged, she says, look, she goes, the truth is, she goes, I let this go. She goes, it's my fault.
Right.
She goes, and then what she shared with me then afterwards was that really everything that we set up would work perfectly for her. Mm-hmm. And it was just a question of that she didn't have the discipline to put the time aside to put things back the way we had set it up. But she was very happy, again, with the knowledge that I shared with her and the structure I put in place.
Right. It's interesting, like anything, like exercise. You can have a personal trainer, but if he says, I'll train you once a week, but you got to go to gym 3 times a week, you got to go to gym 3 times a week.
Correct.
And that's what's with you. And what I found, we're going through a transition, my wife and I, and we're moving downsizing to a home half the size. And for the last 6 months, I've been trying to get her to purge. Mm-hmm. And it's been very difficult to get that to happen. And I said, let's tackle one thing at a time. And the answer is, I don't have time. And I said, let's take the top shelf in the whole closet. It seems so unthreatening. Mm-hmm. When you break it down to small pieces, I don't know if that's a strategy that you use. It's like one piece at a time. I'm just saying one little microcosm of a space at a time, and it's just not working.
So that's great. Yeah. So here's the analogy I use with my clients because I like to inject a little bit of humor into the process
that's always
at
good.
the same time. Well, listen, they're already stressed out.
Yep.
So first and foremost, I want to take that stress out of the equation. I don't want them to see this as a chore or a job.
Right.
I want them to see it as, hey, let's get excited to get this done. So the analogy I always use with them is I ask them, I say, well, how do you eat an elephant?
Right.
Most times they look at me with like that sideways dog looking at
a time, yeah.
and they'll go, I tell them it's one bite at a time. This didn't happen yesterday. This didn't happen last week.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it's happened over 10, 20, 30 years.
Right.
So it's not something they did right away, but there is a solution to getting this taken care of. And that's the starting point. I find that when we have that starting point as a dialogue, it starts to flow from that. And so to your point, it would be, okay, let's, where they're looking at their entire house.
Right.
I always ask them the question, which room, if you had only one room to do,
right,
what's the one that causes you the most stress, the most pain? What would your wish list to be if you can only do one room?
Is there a common answer to that?
Not necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
It really depends on where their head is at with things, but it could be some of the more common answers would be, well, my kitchen.
I think kitchen and bedroom.
Garage. Well, the women, yes, it's always, my bedroom, the closets are bursting at the seams with clothes. Yeah. But it tends to be more common areas that family gather.
Right.
Because those are places that
people see
become the usual suspects where things get thrown, misplaced, shoved in a cabinet.
Right.
And those are the ones because they're seen.
Right.
You think about it when you have guests over your house,
right,
where do they usually end up wandering into is the kitchen.
Right.
Well, you have a messy, disorganized kitchen.
Yep.
Most homeowners feel an embarrassment of that.
Right.
So they go, well, I really want my kitchen cleaned up. Okay, then let's do it.
You said something very interesting, and it's bothered my whole life. And then my young life. Then I became an adult, and I understood a little bit more. That happens every now and then, And my mother said, we have to clean the house. Someone's coming over. I said, if we live a sloppy life, we shouldn't be embarrassed about it. If we're embarrassed about it, we shouldn't live a sloppy life. Not that our house was sloppy, but it wasn't company ready. Let's put it that way. And then I got married. I had a house, and suddenly I'm saying people are coming over. We have to clean the house. Like, what happened to my philosophy? So I guess we all want to, however neat our house is, we always want to be neater when people are coming over.
Mm-hmm.
And if you hear noise in the background, sorry, we're just building a new podcast studio, and those are the contractors banging away. So I'm not sure if it's showing up, but hopefully not on the audio. But but organization is as much intellectual as it is emotional.
Mm-hmm.
One person's level of organization is another person's idea of chaos. Now, I'm sure you see people want different degrees of. Some people just want less stuff. Some people want labeled bins, and I'm sure you have all different personality types. You have
absolutely.
But one question before we go into that detail: how did you get into the organized space, if you will?
Well, I started my career when I came out of college in the corporate world, like probably most people do. And I had a office job and a desk job, and I worked for companies where I did something called category management. It was business and analytics. It had a lot of different titles to it, but it was all around the same thing. But primarily, what I did was organizing data for clients that I worked for a consulting company most of my career. So we would get sales data, that the client would provide, and I would have to analyze it. But it came in, and I'd have to organize it to create spreadsheets and charts. And so my point is that I was organizing data, and from that, I used to do something called planograms, which are really it was a fancy term for using a software that you were able to design a schematic of what a section would look like. So, as an example, one of my retailers that I did a lot of work for was the Home Depot and Lowe's, and I did their lawn and garden department for about 10 years, designing the shelf sets across the entire country. Now, how does that relate to what I do today? It was organizing.
I could definitely see the correlation.
So I organized the data, create the analytics so that decisions could be made on what products would be carried. But then from that, once those decisions were made, it was now putting the products on the shelves where they belonged,
Right.
clustering, categorizing stuff, based on what the data said, but also based on how each company wanted their product. So
Right.
when I made the decision to leave that life
Right.
and go into this, to me, it was no real big leap. I went
Right.
from analyzing data to analyzing people's things.
Right. The leap was W-2 versus self-employment, but
Yeah, that was a big leap.
that was the big leap. But the leap wasn't in what you do; it was just how you get paid for it.
It was
You know,
looking at things in a different way.
different
Yeah,
clientele is all, but
different
the process is
clientele.
the same.
I still have to, just like I did in the past, I had to engage with my client and go meet with them. I used to fly all over the country to
Right.
go to different meetings. Here, I don't have to fly anyway. My
Right.
client base is Long Island,
Right.
New York to Montauk.
Right.
But it's still engaging with my clients, meeting with them, listening to them, understanding and really hearing
Right.
not just what you see,
Mm-hmm.
but really trying to peel back the layers of the onion to understand what's the problem.
Right.
And I really strive to listen to what their root problem is.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes Larry, it's not just the clutter.
Right.
Oftentimes, if I work with them enough, I start finding out, oh, their spouse passed away. Well, that caused the problem. That caused a void in their life. Or, well, the kids got older, they moved away.
Yes.
Well, now the house is empty. Or, hey, my mom and dad, they passed away, or they went to a retirement home. So there's some traumatic, or went through a divorce.
Right.
So there's always something traumatic that sparks, part of what ends up being the physical clutter that you see. It's a depression that they might feel, or a stress or an anxiety, and all those things are negative, and they end up, festering themselves in clutter.
So let me ask you a question. I'm going to bring this back to me for a moment,
Sure.
as though I'm a client that we're having a first meeting. My wife and I married to be 40 years in September, and we're homeowners for 39 of those years. And we lived in a small home. And then when we moved to this home, which is twice the size of the small home, ironically moving back to a home of the same size, my wife was 8 months pregnant, had no time to pack, and the moving company came and just moved everything, including all our crap.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean literally our crap. So we have 40 years of clutter between the attic and the garage and the closets and so on. Is there any, it's just natural accumulation. Is there any, in your experience, any deep-seated reason that our house is overflowing? Our attic was filled to the gills. My son, thank God, came over 2 weeks ago, and we cleaned out a lot of the attic. I'll get to that in a moment because I think it's very relevant to what you do. But would you say there's a reason, something behind that you want to unearth why we have this stuff? Or is it just people, the 40s just tend to have stuff and they stuff it away in the corners of the house and the bowels of the house and so on?
Well, it's great. And it's a great question. I mean, based on what you just described to me,
Yeah.
To me, I look at it simply as you had 40 years of living your life.
Right.
So in the course of 40 years,
Mm-hmm.
things accumulated. You started off, you said right away your wife was pregnant. Okay,
Yeah.
well, you started having kids.
Right.
And so think of all the things that come along once you start having kids. And as they get older, and I've seen this with a lot of my clients, is that, they tend to put those things away. They think, well, maybe I might have another kid, or, well, you know what? I don't have time right now. Let me put it in the attic. Let me put it in this closet. And then it becomes sight unseen and you just simply forget about it.
Yep.
But then, again, you just continue to go through life. Now your kids are getting older. You're working full time. You're going on vacations. There's school activities and they get involved in sports. So again, you just think about all the things that we do that are completely normal and common every day. And the so-called clutter becomes secondary because it's not a priority.
Right.
So I try to stress that with my clients is that this is not something that they should be embarrassed about.
Right.
They shouldn't feel, bad about it. They shouldn't feel like, oh, there's something wrong with them.
Right.
This is normal.
Right.
But it just gets to a point, though, when they realize it, and I say, okay, so now it's time to say, what are we going to do about it? This is not about belaboring on, oh my God, look at my house.
Right.
It's
not how did I get there? How do we get out of it?
Yeah, I don't want to focus on the negative.
Right. Yep.
We recognize that the attic is full, whatever it is.
Right.
Okay, what do we want to do? And then it becomes a conversation at that point. We just sit down and I want to talk to them. What's going on? Tell me more about it. Tell me some stories. And let's figure out what is it you want to do? If you had your druthers, what would you want to happen with all these things? Do you want to keep everything? Do you want to get rid of it? Do you want to donate it, sell it, throw it in the trash? And it becomes that conversation. But for me, as the organizer, it also becomes that verbal contract that I form with my clients. And it starts the foundation for, if they decide to move forward with me, that's how I start coming into every session based on what we talked about from the first meeting.
Right.
You said you want to do this.
Right.
And it's an accountability too.
That's a big part. In business, accountability is huge.
It's an accountability on the behalf of my client.
Yep.
Because when you tell me, if you and I sit down, Larry, and you say to me, you know what, I looked at the attic and I'm going to get rid of 95% of this stuff. I just want to throw it away because I know it's been sitting here so long between the heat and the cold. It's destroyed everything. And then we start working, and then you start saying to me, oh, let me put this to the side. Well, let me think about this.
Right.
Okay, no problem. Listen, it's your stuff.
Right.
But I am going to ask you, did something change?
Right.
Is something I need to know?
Right.
Because I came in with the game plan, Larry, that you told me that you want to throw away 95% of this stuff.
Right.
And now you're keeping things.
Right.
And I do that in a very nice way. I don't shove it in their face.
Right.
I do it to kind of jar them, to snap them out of, when I say that to them, it usually gets them to think, oh, wait a minute, I did say this is what I want to do.
Right.
So again, it's always about that accountability.
Right. Yeah. You have to establish at the beginning before you go to the first item.
Right.
It's logical.
I also tell them up front that, listen, if that's the game plan we're going to have, then that's how we're going to have the success. We are going to have that success. But if you change your mind and you went into a different direction, it now changes the end result, which now I can no longer guarantee that we're going to accomplish the same thing, because you now went a different direction. And now if that's what you want to do, now I have to adjust because now you made a change.
That's right.
So again, I position it that way because I want to get them to take accountability for the situation. I don't want to make them feel bad about it.
Right.
But I want them to recognize that, look, this is what I said I want to do.
Correct.
I need to stay with the game plan.
Back to my accumulation story in my life, because it's so relevant. Normally, I don't bring my own personal stories when I'm interviewing people, but I'm like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I have crap, and we all have crap. It's just a matter of how much you have. It's not a matter of do you or don't you. It's how much. And so, but the stories when I went to clean out my attic again, just this last week or two. My son went up there with me. In 2 sessions, because it gets kind of uncomfortable up there after a while. And we cleaned out, I'd say about 80% that we physically touched before we just had to stop. We just ran out of time. Out of the 80%, out of all that stuff, we kept almost zero. And when I say kept, I mean threw in the garbage. A few things we were able to put away to give away. And that was it. All the baby clothes that we went through, which there's still plenty more up there. My wife said, we'll save them for our children when they have children. So we showed some to my daughter, and my kids laughed at them. They're from 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. They don't have the same style as today. So if you think you're saving baby clothes for your grandchildren, forget it. Styles change. 30 years is too old. So the things we think have value generally don't have value. And if they had value, 30 years later, they're not going to have value. And I learned that, and I felt kind of stupid when I was done. I mean, the attic wasn't space I really needed, but it was literally probably 80, 90% full. I'm talking about, I couldn't put much more in there. And I mean, literally stacked vertically as well. Thank God it's a low ceiling attic, or else I had more stuff. But at the end, I said, for what did we have this? For all these literally decades, why did we have this? And I assume you encounter that a lot. That most of the stuff gets thrown out. And the other comment I'll make is we're a home buying company at Leave the Key Homebuyers, and we buy houses mainly from senior citizens, and the houses are filled with clutter. And we go through each of those houses, and we try to take from the houses things that could be given away. Mm-hmm. I hate to put things in the landfill. So that's one of the big issues to me with throwing out. We live in such a wasteful society. I think that's one of the reasons my wife and I hung on to things, because we don't want to just throw them out. So we hung on to them for 30 and 40 years, and then we threw them out, because that's much better. That's much better for the environment, because they're 40 years less, it was in the landfill. So therefore, we contributed to society that way. But But we try to recycle whatever we can in these homes.
Mm-hmm.
And we just took thousands of folders from someone had a house full of unused hanging file folds, middle fold. I mean, thousands. And we just donated them to schools, synagogue, and charities, just not to put them in the landfill.
Correct.
It wasn't the money. It wasn't the value of them. It was just from a societal point of view. So people can approach their clutter for so many different reasons, but I'll bet the biggest reason is sentiment.
Mm-hmm.
Why everybody wants. It was my grandmother's. I have 2 photographs from, I don't know who they are. I think they may be my great-grandparents, but I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
But these really cool-looking photographs, which I would never hang up in a million years, but I don't have the heart to throw them out. And they're big, but I don't know what to do with them. Everyone thinks I'm crazy for saving them, but I took them from, it's one of the few things I took from my parents' house. Because I didn't want their stuff. So I'm very conscious I had my own crap in my house. I don't want to bring my parents' crap when we clean up the house after they passed. But I assume that's probably the most difficult time is cleaning out someone else's house, like your parents' house.
Yeah.
I felt beholden to them on one hand.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But a lot of what you brought up, it's all, and these are all common things I run into. And, listening to what the story you just told, I just finished up with a client. The gist of it was that his parents have both passed away. He actually lives out of state.
Oh.
He got me through a contact that I had, and that's how he got referred to me. But I actually met him back in the end of January of this year. And when I first met him and he kind of gave me the backstory, his first reaction was, well, you'll just come in and you'll just, like he was like, oh yeah, we'll just throw all the stuff away.
Right. And
I said, well, you could do that. That's not what I do. I said, I'm looking to.
Right. That's a junk removal company.
Yeah. And I work with trash removal companies, but I bring them in when they're needed.
Right.
They're not the first line of defense in 99% of the jobs that I do. So in this case, him and I walked through the house. I said, well, let's think about that. So we went through all the rooms in the house, the bedrooms and all the other spaces. I pointed out and I told him, I said, there's a lot of stuff here that could be donated.
Right.
He wasn't interested in selling it, and it's not really something that I get involved in.
Right.
I have other, contacts that I'll put my clients in touch with if they really want to sell things. I also have an appraiser that I work with. So like when you talked about, the valuables and whatnot, a lot of times I reach out to him, to them, and I say, okay, I have a client that has this, let me know what you think about it, kind of a thing. But in this gentleman's case, I was able to donate a vast majority of the contents. I mean, his parents had his mother in particular had tons of clothes.
Right.
And they were in great shape.
Yeah.
And there was no reason whatsoever to throw any of that away.
Yeah.
And I took, I have a couple different organizations that I donate things to. I handled taking care of all the donations. And at the end of the process, the trash that actually got taken out was really trash.
Right.
And it was very little. And what I shared with him, I told him, I said, listen, I said, based on what we did after we had the initial conversation, I said, I know, I probably saved you anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 on trash removal because all these things went to donation.
Wow.
And
that's a win-win.
Well, he did. He kind of stepped back and he said, really? And I said, listen, I've been doing this a long time.
Right.
I said, and looking at the volume of what we were able to donate, I can visualize all this stuff in the back of a trash truck.
Right.
I know what the trash costs are. I said, I'm just telling you, I said, you probably saved, up to upwards close to $2,000 on trash.
Right.
And the beauty of it is that, and he acknowledged it. He says, well, at least someone else is getting use out of it.
That's how I feel. That's exactly.
And I said, you're 100% right.
Yep.
I said, because I feel the same way. If it's something is good, I don't want to just throw it in the garbage.
Right.
At the same time, unfortunately, we are in a different generation. We are in a different time period where, younger people don't collect things. A good example of that is that I have clients that are in their 50s and 60s and 70s. And what did we all have back then was the china closet or a curio cabinet, because you had the Hummels and you had, the Yadros. And, back then, 30, 40 years ago, these were going to be your retirement.
Those Christmas plates and
Well, the sad reality is that in today's market, it's not that it's garbage, but it's not going to fetch you to $5,000 and $10,000, $20,000 that it was positioned or promised 30 years ago. Again, they get donated, and I give people the option. I said, listen, you could, you want to keep a few pieces that mean a lot to you?
Right.
That's fine. You want to keep all of them? That's fine.
Right.
Maybe you want to give some to a couple pieces to your family,
Right.
friends.
Yep.
You want to donate them. Listen, if you could sell them, try. I said, but understand, you'll probably be lucky if you get back whatever you paid for them.
Right.
But they don't have to go in the garbage. But because younger people don't collect,
yep.
the China closet has become obsolete.
Right.
So my experience has been I cannot find a market for China closets.
That's because it's not to be found. I'm trying to give one away right now. It's on Facebook or Craigslist, my in-laws.
Mm-hmm.
And we have 0 bites on it.
Yep.
Yeah. Nobody wants to display the things if they don't need to display cabinet. Yep.
Because the younger people don't want the China set. They don't want the collectibles. They don't want. They're all dust collectors to them.
They're all dust collectors.
They do tend to minimize more, and they want a cleaner looking home.
Yep.
So when you look at the older homes, and you see it in your business all the time. You look at the furniture.
Yep.
You could tell even if the people aren't there.
Oh yeah.
You could walk into a house just by the furniture and go, "Oh, these people must be 70.
Right.
These people are 50." You could tell.
Yeah.
It's not a knock.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's all generational. It's part of that culture. And today it's different.
Yep.
People want less. Younger people want less in their home.
Right. So let's, without a doubt, and that's why my own parents, they were world travelers and collected from all over the world. And we literally threw up most of what they had. The stuff they spent, I can't imagine, tens upon tens of thousands over their lives. We couldn't even give it away.
Mm-hmm.
And we called an appraiser in, and things I thought had value. A Turkish rug cost them $4,000, a little wall-hanging rug. We sold almost nothing. I'm worried about making a few dollars here and there. I'd rather go to somebody who likes it. This $4,000 rug we sold for $150.
Right.
I mean, no, and she said that the Turkish rug market dried about 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I know there was a Turkish rug market, but people who are in that universe understand. And Rosenthal China couldn't get rid of it, literally in the garbage. I have another set of Rosenthal China, which is a nice set. My daughter says, I'm not taking it. My mother forced it upon me. It's sitting wrapped up somewhere in our house. My daughter says, I'm not taking it. So we got to get rid of that one too. It's good and it's bad. Less is kind of more, having all this clutter around to collect dust and everything else doesn't really make sense in my opinion. If you have a few select things that have value, that makes much more sense than having the 100 Hummels or the 50 Yadros and things of that nature. So it's probably not a bad way to be, but
no, it's not. I tend to my term for that is visual noise.
That's a good term. That's exactly what it is.
And it really does. I find, listen, even for myself as an organizer. I mean,
right.
Everybody asks me, how's your house look? And I said, well, listen, it's
right.
I always position people and tell them it's functional.
Right.
Do you see my floor? Absolutely. I mean, I don't have piles in the corner, things of that nature, but, it's not like you walk into my house and it's pristine.
Right.
We still need to live functional lives.
Right.
I think really what it comes down to, Larry, in all the people that I've met and worked with and dealt with, when we talk about clutter being organized, it really is a matter of your personal preference.
Right.
There's no one size fits all model in this.
Of course.
You and I could sit down and walk through our respective houses. And if you're happy with, the situation that you're in, and even if it's a little cluttered for my liking,
right.
but you don't feel that way and you don't feel stressed and you know where everything is, then that's okay.
Yeah.
It wouldn't work for me, but that's my personal taste.
Correct.
And that's why I was saying earlier that when I sit down with my clients initially with that first consultation, it's having that discussion about what is it that you want. And that's what I always strive to give them. Right. So it could be if their whole house, they may say, oh, my whole entire house is full of clutter.
Right.
But like I said earlier, it may be one room. If that's what we accomplish for them,
right.
And they feel like, you know what, you got me started, I'll do the rest.
Right.
Hey, this is all I really wanted out of you. That's okay with me.
Of course. It satisfies their need for their level of.
I want to give them what they want and do the best job that I can for them to, accomplish, again, the vision that they have for that space.
Right.
Hi, I'm Larry.
And I'm Ben.
We're the father and son team of Leave the Key Homebuyers, and we want to buy your house.
We specialize in working with seniors who are transitioning out of their homes, and we understand what you were going through.
So if you're considering selling your home and would like an alternative to the traditional overwhelming process, reach out and see how we can help.
Do you have an outdated home?
No need to update anything.
Have a home that needs repairs?
Don't bother with repairs.
Don't want to take everything with you?
Leave whatever you want behind.
Dreading the headaches that come with agents?
Sell your home without paying a commission.
Dreading prying neighbors, attending open houses and passing judgment on your home?
No need for public showings.
When you sell to us, you'll have all the certainty of closing on your timeline, not someone else's, and there's absolutely no pressure.
Visit leavethekey.com or call us today for a no-obligation offer at 631-388-7771 if you want to sell your home today.
So the big question I have for you is, do you own a label maker? Imagine organized guys, everything in bins with labels on them, but it's not the case.
I do have a label maker, yes.
But when you use it.
I don't use it nearly as often as I used to.
I have one. I've never used it.
And it goes part of my own personal experience with things is that life changes. I have a client and I love her to death, and she's got, I lost count of how many pairs of shoes she has. And she doesn't wear them.
Right.
She's never going to wear them.
Right.
But you know what? It makes her happy.
Right.
And so with the label maker, she went out and bought all these shoe boxes, and she insisted that we labeled all boxes.
Right.
And we did.
There you go.
I spent several sessions with her labeling boxes with all the terminology she wanted to use.
The shoe she'll never wear.
And it worked. She did wear some of the shoes, but the point is that over the course of time, I observed that, as she did different things with some of the shoes, that now all of a sudden the labels that were put on boxes, we had to peel off, put new labels on. And, so it becomes this cycle of, do you really need to label everything in the planet to be organized? And the answer is no.
Right. Oh, absolutely. So let me ask you a question. I have sort of two questions. Now, I'll ask them, you can answer them, I guess, consecutively. One is, do you have a typical client, or when's the right time for a client to call you? And the second thing is, can you please explain the process? Once that person calls you, when you have your first consultation, what's the experience like?
Sure. So when is it the right time? It's the right time when they feel it's the right time. They have to, like anything else in life, they have to feel like they've reached their bottom.
Right.
Like the pain of where they are is greater than where they're going to go.
Right.
And that's when they'll reach out, to speak to me about it. As far as, what the process for me is, I try to keep it very simple. I start off with a phone or video consultation.
Right.
Let's have a little meet. And it's just a conversation. Okay, obviously when we're talking about a specific thing. So as an example, I've had a lot of phone calls this past, lately about garages.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we have that conversation. Okay, tell me about what's going on in the garage. And I strive to ask open-ended questions because I want to get feedback from them. Let them tell me what is going through their head, and what, just listen to them explain what what they see as the problem. And as I'm listening to the different issues that they have going on, I'll interject with, okay, what is it that you want to do? How do you see that you want to get this resolved? Are you looking to keep everything? Are you looking to get rid of stuff?
Right.
If you're looking to get rid of it, what do you think is going to happen with those things? Do you want to donate it? Is it garbage you just haven't dealt with? Again, just keeping a dialogue to start building the foundation of, what's going on in the situation. And from there, it just leads into, all right, well, where do you want to go next with this?
Right.
Oh, well, and they'll say, oh, well, I want to set something up and have you, come. We'll talk about, and that's another thing I strive with them too, with any room that we work on. A lot of times people go, well, I think I need to run out and buy stuff. And I said, what are you going to buy?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I probably need bins, and I probably need this and that. And I go, whoa, stop. I said, because this is what I've seen from my experience. Somebody will say, oh, you know what, I want to organize this my bedroom. And they'll say, well, I need to get bins and all kinds of storage things to store my clothes. Okay, so if they'll say to me, no, because I just want to reorganize the clothes. And I've seen this happen. They set up a session with me. We start working. We start taking the clothes out, and they'll go, I didn't realize I had this. I don't wear this anymore. This doesn't fit. And they end up getting rid of a ton of stuff
Right.
where from the start,
Right.
they said, no, I just want to reorganize it because I can't get into the closet.
Right.
And in that moment, that's when I remind them, I said, this is why I told you don't buy anything.
Right. Right.
Because until we have that first session, until we actually start peeling back the layers of the onion, I don't know what you need. I will tell you, I will suggest what you might need, but let's start working first and let's see where we start going. And oftentimes people will actually do more than what they say they wanted to do when they first talked to me.
They get satisfied, I guess, seeing the results.
Because once we start pulling stuff out, whether it's the closet, the clothes closet, the garage, the kitchen, once they start actually pulling things out that they haven't done in 5, 10, 15 years, they start looking at it going, I didn't even know I had this.
Right.
I don't want this. I don't use this. Right. Or I don't even know why I had this. What was this for? And they make, and that's the beauty of it. Mm-hmm. I'm not telling anybody what to do with their stuff. Mm-hmm. My job is to keep you on track, right, and make sure that the plan that we discussed from the onset is going down that path. We're not veering off to the left or right and getting lost. Mm-hmm. I have to keep my clients productive. I have to keep them on a schedule. I do it in a very quiet way. I don't come in with a bullwhip. I don't want to introduce again. I'm trying to take stress out, but I need to keep them moving forward with what we're trying to accomplish. And it always comes back to and subtly pushing that accountability onto them. Right. And they will make decisions. Mm-hmm. 9 times out of 10, they will make decisions that they didn't even know they were going to make.
I assume you've had clients that you haven't made the progress that you or they wanted to make. Mm-hmm. That you just get they think they want to do something, but they're just not capable at that moment. Mm-hmm. So it must be very frustrating, and it's like a wall you just can't penetrate. What I'm dealing with homeowners.
I mean, it's happened. It doesn't happen often because, again, overdoing this as long as I've done it for 10 years, I've tried to be much better in the questions that I ask on that first conversation that we have to tease out. I really want to understand and listen to them. And do they really want to do the work? Because it's work. Right. Yeah. It's work. Does it happen occasionally where people say, no, I really want to do this, and then they end up not doing it? Yeah, it happens occasionally. Right. They swear up and down on a stack of Bibles. No, this is what I want to do. And I go, all right, we're going to go. And I work session by session. I don't, tie people into long-term contracts because I always let people know, listen, if this is not working for you, then let's just be honest and say this isn't working. Right. Or if it's not working, at least give me let's have an opportunity to have that conversation so I can find why isn't it working. Tell me specifically what the problem is, because I want to have the opportunity to try to correct it to see if we can put it back on the tracks. But to your point, there are times people go, okay, no, I want to start doing it. Right. And doing this as long as I have, I get a sense from people pretty quickly. Right. It's almost like I feel a shift in the energy. Right. They start off, everybody's up high, and they want to really go. And somewhere along the line, I'll sense with those people, like they'll start leaving the room, they'll play with the phone, they become distracted, and the energy shifts. Yeah. And it's at that moment that I know in my head, this is not going to work. Right. Well, they don't want to do it. Right. Or sometimes you have to take a step back and sort of restart. Does that work also? Whether they're just not going to do it, period, you realize? It's a great question. And the answer that or at least what my experience has been, is that either they're going to do it, right, or they're not going to do it.
That's interesting.
I haven't found anybody that I can think of off the top of my head that's been kind of on the fence. Right. It's once in their head that they have decided for whatever reason that it's not what they thought it was going to be, or because that's another question I ask them too. I said, have you ever worked with a professional organizer before? Most times they'll tell me no. Right. So it helps me to then say, okay, well, what do you think's going to happen when we work together?
Well, that's an interesting question.
And, well, I want to know.
Some people probably think they're going to take all their crap and put it into bins with the label maker.
They think I'm going to throw it all away.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought the opposite. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But then they stop you from throwing it away, and then that's where the conflict can...
Usually they go, oh, well, you're going to come over and tell me what to do.
Right.
And I go, well, actually, I'm not going to tell you what to do. We're going to talk about what we're going to do, and I'm going to help you get it done.
Right.
I have to always keep the accountability running.
That's really what you are. You're an accountability partner.
Correct.
Cleaning out your house.
Correct.
It's not... I don't want to downplay what we do, but it's not the skill set. It's like going to a psychiatrist or let's go psychologist, because I don't want to talk about medication. Psychologist, it's something just to listen to you.
Mm-hmm.
Usually you resolve your own issues when you talk them through, but you need someone to talk to. You're a clutter psychologist. So I got to talk to you about my crap, and then you're going to help me decide. You're going to let me decide what to do with it.
Oh, I get told all kinds of things. Things that, I mean, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a licensed psychologist or anything, but, but I'm in the house and listen, I keep all my clients confidential information.
Right.
It's part of the credo of, my profession.
Right.
But I also tell them when I'm meeting with them, because I have some people ask me. I look at their paperwork. I see bank statements. I see financial records. I see a lot of stuff.
Right.
Wills, trusts, all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And occasionally I've had clients, especially older clients, and I understand why they. I don't call it I don't know if I would consider a mistrust. But I guess they question things differently than different generations.
Sure.
But they've asked me, they say, well, you're looking at all my things. And I said, yeah. And they go, well, I said, listen, first of all, I don't take pictures of any of your stuff.
Right.
I don't memorize it.
Right.
I don't really care what you have.
Right.
That's not why I'm here.
Right.
I said, they go, well, yeah, but you're looking at it. I said, you know why I'm looking at it? And I found this to be true of my elderly clients. You think about how the world has changed. Documentation, especially because these folks have stuff 10, 20, 30, 40 years old.
And I wish only 40 years old in my parents' house.
50 years old. What was on those documents? Social security numbers and things that don't exist in today's world. So when they say to me, yeah, but you're looking at everything, I go, right, because this is all going to get shredded.
Right.
Or more importantly, I need to look at it because I need to know what can get shredded or what should be shredded.
Yep.
And if it's not and it's benign, then it can be just thrown away. But if I don't look at it, if I'm not looking at certain information, you could be at risk and I have to protect you. And when I take that approach, when I have that response to them, every time they've been, oh, I didn't know you were doing that. I said, well, I'm protecting you.
Right.
That's why you hired me.
On my calendar, I look every year for what libraries are doing shredding and when I put them on my calendar. Because we're constantly trying to go through papers because we're trying to do for us what you do. And it's not easy. I got to tell you, it's not easy doing yourself. And we've already shredded, I think, 6 cartons this year alone of papers. And when we cleaned up my parents' house, we had tons and tons of cars. But my father organized everything. Everything was in file drawers. He had phone bills from 1960. And he just kept putting the new ones in. And I see we're going down that same path. And so it's a matter of, calling you in is one thing, but then you need to continue maintaining it. And that's not let stuff accumulate. When you keep your phone bills for I don't know why you keep them more than a month. Once you see what's paid on the credit card, you throw out that phone bill, put the new phone bill in, assume you even need to keep the new phone bill. But it's that kind of thing. And you set them up sort of with this kind of system and how not to accumulate more. Your goal is to make your job, to make them no longer a client, to make them a past client, ultimately.
Well, I don't know if I'd go that far.
If they clean out their house, you don't have to clean out
the
again.
goal really is to help them maintain the system. Right. And I still have, a base of clients. Yeah. In fact, it was one of the calls I got, the last couple of days was from a client that I had not seen since before the pandemic started.
Right.
And, she reached out to me. I knew the job, I remember right away the job I did for her.
Right.
And she called me up and she says, she goes, I need you to bring, I need to have you come back in. She goes, I may been able to maintain what we did,
right,
which I thought was great. And I was very happy because it was 4 years ago.
Right.
And she says, yeah, but some things changed in my house. And she's like, and I'm just I'm a little overwhelmed and I could use your help, just taking care of a couple of things. That's great. I mean, that really makes me happy.
Yes.
It makes me happy that A, she maintained it.
Right.
Also makes me happy that she remembered me. She called me
Right.
again.
Yes. That's sometimes the hard
You know,
part. Yeah.
and so now, so we have another appointment. I'm going to go see her and continue on where we left off, from 4 years ago.
It's the best compliment when they call you back for more.
Correct.
I mean, so that's very good. That's very good. And if you were to sort of say if you want to give one example, a story, funny or whatever, or impactful of a home that you decluttered, that you organized, do you have one in mind that you could think of? I'm sure you have very many of them.
Yeah, no, I have, I feel like I always have lots of stories.
I would imagine.
I think the ones that, I have one in particular that she's been a client of mine for going on almost 8 years now.
Wow.
And when I tell people that, they go, "How could anybody keep you for 8 years?"
That's my mind was going. Yeah.
And I said, well, you have to understand it's a couple of things. There's a number of things that have developed over the years of my relationship with this particular client. And one is that when I met her, she had actually hired another organizer who left her house in complete chaos.
Huh.
So, our first initial working together was to fix or correct or address all the things that the other organizer had done. I was very disappointed by seeing what someone else, another professional had done. But over the years, I don't see her all the time.
Right.
There could be sometimes months when I wouldn't see her, but she's older.
Right.
And so our relationship is professional, but she's also treated me as a confidant.
Right.
There's a lot of things I do for her as a senior that sometimes she might call me up and say, "Hey, I need you to fix something."
Right.
If I could fix it,
Right.
in her case, I will. I don't go beyond my scope. I'm
Right.
not an electrician. I'm not a carpenter.
Right. Right.
If it's something I could fix, but she's also, unfortunately, when I don't see her for a long period of time,
Right.
she tends to undo the things that we spent the time doing. So, but I don't look at that as a negative.
Right.
I look at it, as a positive because of the fact that, she still reaches out to me.
Right.
She still values what I do for her.
Right.
And it's an example to me, or at least it's something to me that, here I've touched someone's life beyond just organizing.
Right.
My business, I see as very personal.
Right.
I'm in people's things.
Yeah.
And so it's vitally important that I treat them with respect. But I also want them to understand that I'm there, like I said earlier, to protect them, if that's what's needed, or at least that's how I try to present it. So I really try to have a very personal relationship, again, within reason with some of my clients who, I have, depending on the type of work that I'm doing for them.
That makes sense. I never think in terms of protection, but it's true. So question, I'm debating where to go with this one. I assume the vast majority of people never call a professional organizer. I mean, I assume that's just the way it is. Our minds don't go there.
Mm-hmm.
And many people don't understand the value of what you bring. How could I pay someone to go through who knows how to go through my stuff better than me?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that's a very common attitude. So for those who will never reach out to you, would you have a bit of advice on what somebody can do? Me downsizing, cleaning out a family home, cleaning out my own home. Is there any technique or something simple advice that you would throw out there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, first and foremost, like anything else in life, you need to have a plan.
Right.
If you're going to declutter your home, you're going to downsize, whatever it is that you're looking to accomplish, you need to have a plan. And set that plan up. And I would encourage people, if they're not going to use a professional organizer, write it down. You write down what you're planning on doing and make it as detailed as you need it to be. If it needs to be room by room and you need to write on a couple of pieces of paper,
right.
Hey, I need to do the garage, I need to do the bedroom, I need to do the kitchen, the basement, the attic, every room that's in your house.
Right.
Write it down and then write down what you're planning on doing in each one of those rooms.
Right.
And then the other thing too is that as best you can is prioritize it.
Mm-hmm.
the one thing I will tell you that, with respect to that, as a professional organizer, you could tell me all about your house, and you would say to me, hey, Vinny, I really want to be able to do X, Y, and Z. My part of what I do in that consultation is walking through the house with you. And an example could be, some might say to me, oh, my kitchen's really busting at the seams and is, I can't find anything. Well, when I come through your house, I'm trying to understand the flow of things in the home as best as I can. And as I look at the home in totality, you might say to me, well, in the kitchen, I have these things that don't belong in here, but I don't know where to put them, or they belong in that room.
Right.
Well, I'll go look at the other room. So let's say, for example, it's the basement, and we'll go down to the basement and look around. And as I'm looking at the basement, I might say to you, I know you want to get the kitchen done, but in order for the kitchen to work, I need to start in the bed. And here's why.
Right.
So again, to the question that you're asking me, it really is important to understand the priority or the pecking order of how you're going to go about your plan.
Right. That makes sense. And in construction, you have something called a Gantt chart.
Correct.
Where everything flows. You sit there and say, I'm going to build, right now I'm building a new house in the backyard, a new structure. And you say, okay, I need to get the foundation put. Before I get the foundation put, I have to have the guy do the trenching. And so the guy's going to do the digging. Then comes the concrete. Then comes the lag bolts. Then comes the framing. It's like, no, the framing can't be done until those other steps are done first. That's what you're saying. The basement has to be cleaned first to make room for the things in the kitchen that have to go out, to make room for the other things you want to put in. And everything's related. It's one house.
You put the dominoes in the right order.
Right.
In the right sequence.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
They fall correctly.
That's a nice way.
Otherwise all you're doing is spinning your wheels and wasting your time. So, when you ask me a question about, people not, hiring or thinking, why would I hire a professional organizer?
Right.
My response is, okay, you had said at the top of the show, you talked about, coach, going to the gym.
Right. Yeah.
Well, people hire financial advisors. Right. They're a coach.
Yep.
People hire people at, physical education coaches, nutritional people as coaches.
Yeah.
To me, I'm in the same vein.
And I've hired multiple professional coaches as well for my businesses.
Right.
Absolutely.
Business coaches. I mean, you think about why do you hire all these people? Right. Because, we don't know everything, or maybe we want to get better. So we hire experts who have the skills and the knowledge that we don't possess.
Right. People think cleaning and organizing should just be innate, but it's not.
It's not.
If it was, we wouldn't be calling organizers or need to clean, declutter, and organize.
Correct.
So that's an excellent point. I never thought about it that way. It really is. So my question for you, because my mind's reeling with that last comment, because I didn't think of you as a coach when we until we started speaking. And I'm thinking, who needs this? Why do people need this? And after being in the house buying industry for 15 years, I said, God, people need you. We bought so many hoarder houses. I mean, literally qualified. In fact, one of the homes we're buying, she was actually on the show Hoarders. So I mean, you can't be more classified as a hoarder house than be on the actual show called Hoarders. But so most people's homes we buy have too much stuff. And when we buy homes, we don't require people to clean them out, unlike selling them to a retail buyer. So we see all the crap that they didn't take. That doesn't include the crap they did take with them, like I did when I moved to this house. My second house, it's mind-blowing how much stuff people have and how much stuff people leave behind, which just goes to show, as you said, we're a consumerist society and economy. We just buy for the sake of buying so often. I have 30 shirts. Some reason I go to store and buy a 31st shirt. How many shirts does one person need? And it's just what we do. It's what we do. And then with Amazon and everything else, it's so much easier. It started with QVC. You'd get
2 o'clock in the morning, you could be ordering away. It doesn't matter. And I've seen that happen all the time.
And you'll have it tomorrow.
And
so that's good for your business, but bad for us.
And it's a great point you're bringing up, because again, from my perspective as the professional organizer, I see it all the time, especially if it does get, let's face it, at the end of the day, everybody's talking about what's this cost, what that's cost, what do you charge, that kind of thing.
Once we get to that.
And I look at it and, I have to kind of walk a fine line, because when people ask me about, you're going to charge me this much money, but I see, quite honestly, Larry, when I get into someone's house and I'm starting to go through things and I'm like, wait a minute, this has tags all over it. You bought it.
Right.
And it's not even about the amount that you spent on it.
Right.
It's the fact that
Right.
you spent money on something and you put it away in a clset and you never used it.
Right. Money you didn't need to spend,
So,
money you do need to spend.
Or, especially, when we were on the lockdown, what were people doing? They were running out buying all toilet paper and cleaning supplies. And even now, 4 years, 5 years, down the road after this is all kind of passed, I still go in people's houses and they've got, multiple packs of, 12 packs of paper towels or toilet paper. And I'm like, listen, we're not living in the middle of South Dakota.
Right.
We're on Long Island. I mean, you can go down the road. There's a grocery store someplace and you really need paper towels. And in those situations, I try to stress with my clients, look, I understand, you could tell me I got a great deal on it. Fine.
Right.
My philosophy and the way I look at it is very different. It's taking up, besides the fact it's taking up space in your house, you spent money on that.
Right.
So now you spent the money on that stuff and, instead of, so now you tied up money in your inventory.
Right.
I mean, how long is it going to take you to use 48 rolls of paper towels?
Right.
Why do you really need 48 rolls?
Right. It's true. We spend money on things that are senseless, and the things that really have values we tend not to spend money on. So if there was one takeaway from this discussion for people to say, yeah, I should have thought of that, what would that be?
I think probably the one takeaway that I would want to share with people is, look, you're not alone out there. When you have this kind of an issue, there is help to turn to.
Right.
And regardless of whether you live on the North Shore, the South Shore of Long Island, the East End, the West End, it doesn't matter.
Right.
I don't care what neighborhood you're in. I don't care what color you are, what your religion is. Right. When I get past people's front door,
right,
we are all the same.
Right.
And we all have clutter to deal with,
right,
for whatever reason it is.
Right.
But there are folks like myself who are out there who could help you. There's plenty of organizers, real professional organizers on Long Island. I'm not talking about some of the fly-by-night people. You go out on Facebook, hey, I like to come over and fluffy towel kind of people. I'm talking about professional organizers like myself.
Everybody likes a fluffy towel.
Yeah, well, listen, I get fluffy towels, but I rather spend your money a little wiser and do a deeper work with you. Yeah. But find the right professional organizer that will fit your personality, just like you would do with a doctor or a lawyer or a CPA. Right. You need to find someone that you're comfortable with, because we're going to be side by side with you, right, in doing what you want to get done in your house. And you should be comfortable with that person.
That's very interesting. So, Vinny, I look at your brochure here, the organized guy.
Mm-hmm.
How do people get in contact with you?
They can reach me on my phone, which is 516-456-3461. That's my cell. They can also text me. Best place to reach me is my website, which is theorganizedguy.com.
That's easy to remember.
It's easy to remember. And there's actually a tab in there if they want to book a consultation. It's a complimentary video or phone call if they choose. Consultation they get set up, and we can have a chat, and let's talk about what your situation is and how I can help you solve it.
Perfect. Wonderful. I thank you. I hope people benefit from this.
Thank you.
Some seniors find the use of this, and it's a senior-oriented podcast. But have a great day.
You too, Larry. Thank you very much. I appreciate being on.
Thanks for being on. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Unlocking Senior Resources podcast by Leave the Key. If you've enjoyed this episode or found it helpful, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast. We specialize in working with seniors who are transitioning out of their homes, and we understand what you are going through. So if you are considering selling your home and would like an alternative to the traditional overwhelming process, reach out to see how we can help. When working with us, you can sell your home in its current condition, there is no need to remove unwanted items, and you control when the house is sold, along with so many other advantages. Visit leavethekey.com or call us at 631-388-7771 to learn more about our senior home buying process.